Hello, I wanted to share my ayahuasca experience, and this happened about 3 months ago. And in the state that I'm living in, it's legal through certain means, like there's a church and a few other ways people can do it, but I did it through an alternative route, and just at somebody's house. They consider themselves a shaman. They've been doing it for 20 years. So for my first time, I trusted the environment. And so I arrived, and their whole living room was full of placemats where people could sit and relax and have their experience. And we all got in a circle and we set our intention, and my intention was to deal with some of my anxieties and understand them, and also just to experience ayahuasca for what it is. So I drank it and I started getting pretty nervous. So I pulled out a sketchbook that I carry with me. It's just a way for me to deal with some of my anxieties, and during all my other psychedelic experiences, apart from DMT, it was a really good way to self-soothe. So I started doing that, and then the shaman came up to me and told me that I should try to get into a different headspace, and that kind of annoyed me. But everything that was happening was also connected to like my past. So as a kid, I grew up going to church, and I would always draw and sketch at church, and I was told to stop and that I couldn't do that. So I kind of associated different events with what was happening. So I kind of felt like my environment was being controlled. But I also knew that they were trying to facilitate it into the best experience that I can have. So I knew what they were doing, but I also really wanted that own freedom. So anyways, back to the story. So just out of respect, and I felt like I was kind of misunderstood. I put it down and laid there, and the shaman brought me a scarf to put over my head, and I also felt a little bit uncomfortable with that because with the religious background I came from, women would wear headscarves as a sign of God, and then below God is a man, and below man is a woman, or so that's what I was told. So I kind of refused to wear that or put it over my head. And then I'm a little bit stubborn, as you guys could probably tell. But I found this beautiful hair on the scarf, and I pulled it off, and it was a really long black hair, and I held it between my fingers like this, and I'd pull it tighter and looser, and I began to see my own energy. It was like I felt like I couldn't just lay there and look within me, because I'm a really, really visual person, and I understand my world through what is around me. Like, if things are just in my head, they don't feel as real or as important. So I think that this was ayahuasca being like, okay, well, here, I'll show you, I'll guide you in the way that you understand. So so I was holding this hair, and it was vibrating my energy. So my frequency, my vibrational frequency, was going through this hair. Kind of like when you listen to a music video with the lines, like the beats, you could like see everything like that. That's what was happening. And then I was just like, wow, this is me. It was a really cool experience. And then at one point I like pulled the hair tight enough, and it became like this solid line, and in that moment I felt like I experienced what it would be like to be dead, just very like frozen, and sometimes that feeling is like, I just really feel like I need that feeling. Not that I'm like, I hate my life and I want to die, but more in that I have anxiety, and it gets to a point where life would be a lot more simpler if there would be no life, I guess. Everything gets so overwhelming that I need peace, and I don't know how to get it, because everything is constantly moving and evolving and changing, and nothing is steady, and I think that I find peace in steadiness. So when I felt that, I like just began to, I was just in the zone. I was pretty much hypnotized. I was just staring at this solid line, and I thought it was just extremely beautiful, because growing up, me and my mom used to walk in cemeteries, and she always talked about death in a very, very peaceful way. So for me, I've never seen death as like this horrible thing. Like for me, it's simply just a state of existing, like anything else, you know? So for me, it wasn't a negative thing. It was just a state, and it was a beautiful state. And then I reached and I got this hair, and I like bent it together, and I feel like when I was doing all this, it was me, but it was also ayahuasca guiding me. So I put the hair together, and then, I'm not kidding, there was like a spark. I was also hallucinating, but it was just so real to me. It was so real, and I began to sob really bad, because I feel like I saw through that experience, I don't know how long it lasted, you could say 15-20 minutes, I saw the beauty in my own energy, in my own existence. I saw the beauty in death, and I saw the beauty in birth, and that was really, really intense. And then I was able to relax a little bit, and I closed my eyes, and then I feel like I was going through a birth canal, like I was reborn, and or I was born, like how do I explain it? I relived my own birth, so I didn't feel like I was born a new person. I felt like I went back in time and experienced what it was like being born, like this person right here, and my realization was that when I was born, the first feeling that I ever felt was anxiety. So that determined everything else from the start. And I think that, you know, some people are probably born and they feel unconditional love, or just like, I'm sure there's so many other feelings that people feel, but for me, mine, whoever was in that room during my birth, they were anxious, and it was fear and anxiety. And whether that was my mom, or whether that was the nurses or the doctor, I don't know. I should ask my mom about my birth a little bit more and the details of it. But from then on, my psychedelic experience with the ayahuasca, what I just described was the most like intense. And after that, I feel like I kind of just, like, throughout my whole experience, I was reliving a lot of my traumas, and all the negative shit that happened to me, and just like, I grew up with an abusive dad, and he wasn't as abusive towards me, not as much towards my brother. He was more abusive towards my brother, and so during my experience, this girl next to me was trying to vomit, and she was trying to vomit, I was trying to vomit for her, and I feel like I was, like, she really resembled my brother's energy, and me and my brother were really close growing up. We were like best friends until probably like 9 or 10, and then so I felt like I felt helpless because I couldn't help somebody else that was suffering. And I felt that a lot with my brother growing up, because he was obviously like hurt so many times and I could never do anything about it. And then yeah, it was very interesting because with the other people in the room, I would like sync up with them sometimes. Like there was one guy, anytime he stood up, we would like stand up at the same time, if that makes sense. Or we'd get up, like he needed to go to the bathroom and I need to go to the bathroom, like bam, like we're synced. And then this happened like 10 times, I'm not kidding. So overall, how I felt about my experience, I mean, there's so much I'm leaving out. I just kind of explained the beginning part, but by the end I was so exhausted. I felt like ayahuasca like I was this wet cloth, and it just like was getting all the water out, and I was puking so much. I couldn't stop. Anything I drank I puked up, and by the end I was like, alright, I'm dry, like why else are you like squeezing me, you know? I felt like I had nothing in me. But I think it's impossible for people to have nothing in them to get to that point. That's like, I don't know, there's always something, you know, there's always improvement, there's always growth. So yeah, I also felt during my experience, I felt like it was really controlled, because I've done other psychedelics and they're all very different. I would say ayahuasca is the most intense, but like you're still able to talk to people. There's an interesting separation where yeah, I'm not even gonna go into describing things or comparing things.